Welcome back to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Today it's time for a Zerg versus Protoss, where we find ourselves on Glittering Ashes. Now, spawning here in the top right-hand corner and playing with the red Zerg drones, we have Serral. And his opponent in the opposite corner with the blue Protoss pieces, he goes by the name of SKillous. Alrighty, so Serral versus SKillous on Glittering Ashes. Now, yesterday I uploaded a rather long video where I casted a single game of Protoss versus Terran between Clem and Showtime, and that was a pretty fun match. I figured today, let us have a look at another long game of StarCraft 2. I believe that this one is even longer than the one in yesterday's video, so I think we should be in for a treat. Generally speaking, the longer games, they tend to be really quite good, so I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two players. That being said, right from the get-go, I do think that it's worth noting that Serral is probably the scariest late-game player in all of StarCraft 2, and he has been for, well, several years. Honestly, I mean, I can fanboy over Serral for about 10 minutes, but when we start listing the things that Serral is really good at, that list is way longer than the list of things that he's bad at. Generally speaking, Serral doesn't really lose a whole lot in StarCraft 2. Every once in a while, I mean, for example, at Home Story Cup, he did lose a couple of games here and there. Every once in a while, he does definitely lose a match or sometimes even a series, but there's no denying that Serral is a very, very scary late-game player. So I'm a little bit concerned for the way that this is going to go for SKillous, but I don't know who ends up winning this, so we're going to find out together. Standard openers here from the both of them. Pylon into a gateway on the low ground. We've got ourselves a Nexus at 20 supply, and then also that Cybernetics core a little bit later. This will allow you to get yourself some Adepts out, maybe a Stalker as well if you really want to make sure that Zerg doesn't get too much scouting info. And obviously you can send the Adept across the map to, well, potentially even clean up a drone or two. Generally speaking though, the early game of ZVP has been well figured out over the years. Obviously, we did have that balance patch a couple of months ago, or, well, at this point, it's actually been quite a while. It did shake up the early game of ZVP quite a bit, especially initially, but it seems that pretty much all the pro players that play Protoss have settled on the fact that the Stargate approach is once again the best option. These days, though, it's most of the time Stargate into Oracle. Yeah, so there's the Stargate already. For the last couple of years, in case you haven't watched a lot of StarCraft 2 recently, we have seen a lot of Void Ray openers. Void Rays historically were barely ever used in StarCraft 2 until Blizzard decided to triple buff them. And believe it or not, that made the Void Ray quite a formidable unit. These days, though, it seems like it's only really used as like a last-ditch effort. It's still very popular on the ladder, especially on the lower end of things, but yeah, when it comes to high-level StarCraft 2, the Void Ray, definitely not as popular as it was about a half year or so ago. Anyhow, I'm expecting an Oracle right here as well from SKillous, and he'll probably try and leverage that Oracle into some more scouting information, maybe a couple drone kills, but then also a very quick third Nexus. Glittering Ashes, of course, is one of the biggest maps, so unsurprisingly, we've got a more macro-focused approach from both of these. I mean, Serral generally likes to play that macro style. He did go for a couple of Baneling busts, interestingly enough, at Home Story Cup. So, I think I've brought this up in previous casts as well, but whenever a Protoss player puts a pylon as part of the wall, I always immediately want to Baneling bust them, and it never ever works for me. But Serral did it too, so, you know, maybe it's not necessarily the worst thing if Protoss does decide to go for a cheeky little, you know, pylon in the wall off every once in a while, especially on new maps that can definitely work out in your favor. Now, how many Zerglings did he make? Only 4 in total, I guess. Huh. That's actually kind of greedy against a double Adept opener, but SKillous so far not punishing his opponent for that. Now, finally, additional links are coming up, but Serral definitely trying to squeeze as much juice out of this early game. Alright. Overlord here is going to scout. It did also end up going down, though, because of that one Stalker. Third Nexus already available. Oracle here on the left side of the map, mostly just chilling. Might be waiting until that second Oracle arrives. I mean, it probably tried going in, but Brenda over here, the Queen, already on the perimeter, standing even off creep. There's not a lot of spaces where she can stand off creep, but apparently, yeah, just pushing back at that Oracle for now. And honestly, that's one of the scary parts, right? So, one of the reasons why these top-level Zerg players are very good is because they take so little damage, and they just simply squeeze out so many drones so early on. You see this Queen positioning? Maybe a drone or two will end up going down. Alright, you know what? That's probably best-case scenario right there for SKillous. Ends up taking a bunch of hull damage as well on that one Oracle. If he actually loses more on it... Alright, if you lose an Oracle for 3 drones, that's obviously a disaster. But anyways, what I'm trying to get at is that Serral generally likes playing a very greedy game. No Spore Crawler at the 3rd base, just cutting corners left, right, and center. And eventually, it'll end up with a significant Zerg economy, right? So already we've got a Roach Warren coming up. I'm expecting a 4th base here as well. 5 minutes on a 4th hatchery here for Zerg is, yeah, rather quick. SKillous is going to go for the conventional follow-up in the new patch. And that is indeed... Wow, he actually gets a couple more drones? Alright, loses an Oracle for it. So honestly, 5 drones for an Oracle, maybe it's okay for, you know, the Protoss player, but it's not nearly as good as getting 5 drones and not losing the Oracle. The thing is, Zerg has a lot of scary follow-ups, and especially with, like, the Ling Bane meta that we see a lot right now with Ravagers for support. It's really helpful to have those Oracles still available in the mid-game. Now, I understand that keeping them alive is tricky, but... Oh no, don't lose a second one. Alright. Anyhow, generally speaking, what Protoss like to do right now is they like to go for that approach where they go for Stalkers, Zealots, and then a whole lot of gateway units, and then Oracles for support. So over the last few months, interestingly enough, it's almost like, you know, like how Zerg has like Roach Ravager, Ling Bane, or like Roach Ravager or Ling Bane, and how Terran has like Marine Marauder Medivac. It seems that the Protoss equivalent these days is, interestingly enough, Oracle, Stalker, Zealot. Which, if you would have told me that a year ago, I probably would have been a little bit confused. But with the way, at the very least, that Protoss players are playing it right now, Zergs usually do not go for like a Hydra timing very quickly, right? So Hydras are still played from time to time. We do also sometimes see like a quick Spire as soon as they reach Lair Tech. But you can see what Serral's doing right here as well, going straight into the Infestation Pit. Oracles are actually super cool in the mid-game. We've seen a lot of players going up to like 4, 5, sometimes even 6 Oracles. And they usually actually, yeah, deal quite a bit of damage as the game goes on. Either way, SKillous planted down the 4th Nexus here. He's decided to go for the Templar Archives, so that is a little bit different than what we normally see. But he's also finished up the Blink upgrade as well as the +1 ground weapons. So after the Oracle harassment, we're going to continue onwards with some more damage on the other side of the map. And even if it's just a little bit of creep cleaning here, this is going to slow down the Zerg player ever so slightly, who did, by the way, decide to go for a Spire. So Mutas, definitely an option. One of the nice things about opening up with a Stargate is that it's quite a bit harder for the Zerg to decide to go into Mutalisks. Because obviously Phoenixes are really, really strong when it comes to fighting the Mutas. So just having a Stargate out usually seems to deflect Zergs already. Now it is a pretty quick hive as well, so maybe Serral's just going to use this for a greater Spire instead. Yeah, could be actually. He might make a group of Mutas. I think if he is going to make Mutas, he'll probably make like 8 or so, and that'll be it. So he's got, yeah, about 800 gas, 900 gas by the time that Spire finishes. Just to try and push the Protoss player back here for a little while, but we're definitely set up for a pretty nice little macro game here. So if we wanted to go Mutas right now would be the time. No, he decides to go Corruptors, okay. Overseer right here scouts out roughly what's happening. He sees the Stalker count. Yeah, so... not a terrible opportunity for the Zerg to potentially go across the map. I mean, these are +1 attack Zerglings right now. They're actually quite strong. He did decide to actually forgo the Baneling speed upgrade for now, which is kind of interesting. Do we even have a Baneling nest in the first place? No, we do not have one. So Serral actually cutting quite a few corners. Not something that he usually does this aggressively. Couple of Corruptors here just to make sure that these Prisms don't deal any damage. At the same time, though, Stalkers ready to try and clean up some of that creep once again. A lot of Zerglings setting themselves up for a run-by. You could try and go for a wraparound as well. There is Storm available, which I think Serral just saw for the very first time. Yeah, decides to group the units back up together. He actually needs to be very cautious. Without a Baneling nest, holding attacks like this actually becomes rather tricky. Now, it seems to me that SKillous is not really going to commit too much. He's got a lot of Stalkers, and he's got a few High Templar over here, but it's not really an army that can fight a Zerg straight on. Especially with Adrenal Glands and +2 melee. That's going to be very difficult to pull off, because those Zerglings are going to pack a punch, but... yeah, definitely some room for harassment, right? At the same time, though, the Zerglings have gone across the map. They got to start working on the static defense, and potentially even, well, some of these probes as well. This is actually a really important little attack right here from Serral. Okay, even targeting down the Nexus itself. I think he may have accidentally forgotten about the Baneling nest over here. I'm not exactly sure if he planned to delay it for that long, but that push actually seems quite scary, and right now, Since those Zerglings brought that entire Protoss army back home, he's probably going to be able to stabilize. Especially with the Greater Spire now finishing up. I think he'll be A-okay. Alright, and there's Brute Lords coming up. Now, obviously, Stalkers can definitely blink underneath Brute Lords as well. So that it is something that SKillous has potentially... oh, he's got some moves going there. Love the Archons in the front right there, ready to soak up a lot of those Banelings and potentially Zergling hits too. This is a bit of an awkward army, but I actually kind of dig it. Yeah, SKillous definitely putting Serral's back against the wall. Alright. 5th Nexus coming up as well in the center of the map. Protosses have become so good at fast expanding, right? It's kind of funny, like, 10 minutes for a 5th Nexus doesn't even seem that fast to me anymore. But once upon a time, literally like half a year ago, that would have been considered very quick. Anyhow, +1 flyer attacks researching already. Zealots here in the middle of the map will be able to take care of those Zerglings easy peasy. But at this point, Serral has Brute Lords out, right? And those Brute Lords... I mean, it's only a couple of them for now. Those Brute Lords definitely can push back a Protoss army nicely. That was well done as well. Yep. So, SKillous is just going straight for the late game here. He could have decided to go for a straight-up attack. That seems to be what most of the Protoss players opt for these days. Okay, now Serral has +2 melee done. And I believe the roly-poly upgrade is as well. Yeah, so those Banelings are going to be able to one-shot probes, which is exactly what they're aiming for here. Anyways, once upon a time, Protoss players at this level were very happy to, go for timing attacks against Serral in particular. But in this case, apparently SKillous is going for the late game. Alright. Must mean he's feeling confident about it. Let's see if he's paying attention right over here. One Zergling leads the charge. SKillous not really paying attention though, and yeah, he's definitely going to take at least some damage. At the same time though, there's a Stalker push happening right here on the right side of the map. First Tempest is coming up as well. No carriers, going straight to Tempest. I think this is the first time he sees the Brute Lords. Yeah. So, Brute Lords versus Stalkers are kind of an interesting dynamic. Because in small numbers, the Stalkers definitely do beat the Brute Lords. However, if, you don't have enough Brute Lords to kill the Stalkers, what you do is usually just make more Brute Lords, right? And at some point, if you have, like, an Archon Immortal Zealot-based army in the mid-game, usually, like, 6 to 8 Brute Lords is enough to counter any Protoss mid-game army that isn't mass Stalker. But if you go for, like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20... ish, depending on the amount of Stalkers that there are out there. But if you go for like 20 Brute Lords, the Protoss ground armies really deal absolutely no damage anymore. They just get absolutely destroyed, especially with like Zerglings for support, maybe a couple of fungal growths in the mix as well. So SKillous right now, upon seeing those Brutes, is going to be forced to go into the Stargates. And, well, looks like he's already there. He was already setting himself up for that transition. +2 attack coming up as well for those Flyers. Very nice. Alright. The one downside of going Brute Lords, while they do counter the majority of those Protoss ground units, and I think actually all the Protoss ground units at this point in the game, usually if you attack with them, it's a one-way trip. So Brute Lords, yeah, they are relatively slow. Looks like this time around. Well, I say that. At the same point, there was also apparently an attack over here in the middle of the map, so 16 additional probes end up going down. I've actually never really seen someone follow this up with Burrow. Okay, he does have vision right now with an observer getting close enough. Anyhow, 16 additional probes end up going down. I don't think that SKillous really has to be concerned, though, about Zerg going for a strong attack here anytime soon. Because, like I said, those Brute Lords, they're very slow. They can be outpaced by practically every Protoss unit in the book. And because of that, if you want to attack with them, it's usually a one-way trip. There are definitely some builds where you can go for, like, a Brute Lord timing attack. But I think Serral is probably going to chill and sit back for now. Love the Oracle usage here. So Oracles with a Revelation skill are going to give him vision even through the fog of war, rather, of those Brutes. And that means that the Tempests that have insane air-to-air ranged, they're going to be able to start working on these units one at a time. Love to see it. So he's got 5 Tempests over here, which apparently is enough to one-shot the Brutes. SKillous is playing a very nice game. I love it. At the same time, on the left side of the map, there's also a little skirmish here. Fighting only on one location at once. That would be, Master League level. Maybe low Grandmaster, okay? You gotta make sure you go for your counterattacks too, apparently. Actions per minute here. So, well, You can divide it if you want to. You can figure out how many actions a second that is, but the TLDR is that these guys are playing very quick StarCraft. Which is what allows them to go for these multi-pronged harassments. Okay, nice fungal growth actually. Big fungal growth. Good feedbacks as well. SKillous still in the right place at the right time. Microbial Shroud is going to make this a little trickier. A good storm right there on the Corruptors. Beautiful. Very well done right here by SKillous so far. Who's now also going to continue pushing over here. Now, I don't think that this is going to do too much. Static defense is already here. Love the position right here, by the way, of that static defense. Yeah. Those Banes definitely will connect. Well, at the same time, this fight over here is still happening. It looks like most of the Tempests did take a beating, but they're still alive, and they're still dealing damage. Interestingly enough, Serral hasn't gone for the base over there, but he did go for the one right over here on the right side of the map. Anyways, this is a pretty scary Protoss army, but a lot of the units are running relatively low in HP. Keep in mind, when you're fungal, you cannot actually blink. So, fungal does, prevent you from blinking away. Archons are going to be recalled back home, and I think with that, SKillous is going to have to push back for now. Or I guess pull back for now. Oh, Archon's still available though, a couple of them, and that's very important. If you don't have any anti-air, obviously those Tempests would get picked off one at a time by the Corruptors, but nicely done right there by SKillous, keeping those units alive. I'm mostly concerned right here for SKillous, even though... Ooh. Alright. A little bit of a Baneling drop over here. Is he once again gonna burrow? Yeah, he is. I'm a little bit concerned right here for the amount of economy that SKillous has. Now, I understand that he's got 5 bases, but it's gonna be quite tricky for him to actually continue expanding from here. Serral really using the burrow mechanic here a lot. Alright, I think that's a recent development in his play, because normally we don't really see him playing that much. Or playing him that, you know, that upgrade that much. Anyhow, I guess that this, is the logical next step right here for Protoss. But obviously, this is also a relatively vulnerable base, and Serral's gonna get the heads up of this right away. I mean, he should anyways, the probe right there. Somehow, just got the notification that it was blocked, but Serral did not get the notification that a Nexus was apparently attempted to be planted on top of that Zergling. Either way, I feel like it's gonna be much easier for Zerg to continue expanding than it is for Protoss. These are now +3 melee Zerglings, +2 armor, adrenal glands. Lingbane run-bys are gonna absolutely pack a punch. I guess the same can be said though for Zealot run-bys, but SKillous at this point doesn't really have the money to really just, well, warp in a dozen or so Zealots and deal some damage. I mean, he did try and do that earlier, but that was a rather expensive trade. So far, resources lost relatively even, and as we all know, that is an advantage for the Zerg. Zerg is usually at this point in the game expected to be trading worse. But yeah, those Infestors are definitely providing a lot of value. Oh, hello, hello, hello. No, don't do it. Oh, God. Don't do You hate to see it. Unless you're a Zerg player. Hey, I'm a Zerg player, actually. Sorry, you love to see it. Protoss forgetting about their High Templar. Protoss players right now molding at their screens. Zerg players salivating all over their monitors. Maybe you're not watching on a I don't know what you're watching this on. Probably a phone. Or a television. Or whatever. Actually, I know a lot of people watch my videos while they're at work. Don't want to call you out, but I know a lot of people kind of treat the videos as a podcast where, you know, occasionally there's a science fiction game going on in the background too. Anyhow, SKillous is gonna continue onwards with the harassment, and I really like what he's doing in this game so far. So there's the Mama ship coming up. There's the additional upgrades. He's not going for the carriers here. I like what he's doing, but I don't know if it's the right move, to be honest. Yeah, those fungal growths are lethal. Oh, good storm. Very nice storm. But still, that's once again a couple Archons going down. At the same time, the army over here, a couple of Brute Lords have been added into this force as well for the Zerg. This army over here will be pushed back, and maybe this is the opportunity that Serral's been looking for. Maybe this is the moment where he's going to try and actually move across. Okay, a couple of interceptors now available too, though. Yeah, definitely messing with the AI right here of the Corruptors. That being said, with all the anti-ground or anti-air units on the ground right now gone, I was going to say, those Corruptors can pick off any of those big heavy hitters. Maybe it was an overextension, though, because this is an awful lot of Protoss right now coming in from the other side. Zerg reinforcements, though, come from the Zerg bases as well. Beautiful splits right here on those Archons, negating a lot of that splash damage. And the Infestors right now incredibly exposed. If somehow, some way, SKillous could pick those off, that would be huge, but they just managed to scurry away at the last possible moment. Almost a disaster right there for Serral, but I think he actually comes out ahead in that engagement. It's a very strange force. Look at that. Look at that. That is, what, 9 Archons, 1 carrier, and a Motherships. Very cool. Yeah, that's a proper high-level game. The thing is, like I said at the beginning of this cast, Serral's late game is an absolute monster. So is his early game and his mid game, for what it's worth. But, like, his late game in particular, I don't really see him losing a lot of late game. So, you know, there's that. Anyways, bases here on the left side are being acquired. I think he's probably going to attempt to go for the ones over here, too. A lot of Zerglings, though, if they have a say in the matter, they're going to try and prevent that from happening. There are Brute Lords available somewhere. Okay, yeah, the Brute Lords are slow. If he wanted to go, and I think he does. Oh, okay. He wants to go into the Zerg Natural and the Zerg main base. He doesn't know exactly where the Brute Lords are. Brute Lord's also apparently moving on over in this direction because he's afraid for a mass recall. Instead, though, that's not going to happen. Just a single time warp, and that's minus 400. Minus 400 right there for the Protoss player. I think he was attempting to go for maybe a mass recall and sending that entire Protoss army from the Zerg's natural towards, well, one of these bases right here on the perimeter of the creep. Anyhow, Zerglings now in the meantime killed 18 probes. And once again, the burrow mechanic is coming into play. Very ambitious little Stalker over here. Got a feeling that's not going to achieve too much. Alright. We definitely are still missing a bunch of upgrades, though, for both of these players. Those late game upgrades are very expensive, and if you look at the banks here, because they've been constantly battling, they actually don't have that much stuff. Like, they don't really have that many resources in the bank. So, yeah, you do want to get those upgrades going. The same can be said for Serral. But you gotta pick and choose. You can't just get everything. This is not one of those games where Zerg and Protoss here are sitting on like a 10,000 resource bank. At that point, just take whatever you like, right? But you gotta... yeah, you gotta prioritize whatever upgrade you prefer at this stage in the game. And apparently the plus to the armor is gonna be the choice right here for those flyers from Zerg. It's probably primarily to deal with any sort of like carriers. Because those interceptors obviously... ooh, a couple of infestors. A couple of... yeah, nicely done. Beautiful. SKillous is very on point here. Okay, well, that definitely sucked, though. He tries to blink away right now, but the continued follow-up right here, the chain fungaling, is going to prevent him from blinking away. Mass Infestor is not a style we see very often. Right now, we have Zerg transitioning towards an Ultralisk Cavern 2. Once again, there's Protoss units everywhere, and the main base is actually in a lot of trouble. Yeah, a lot of Zerg reinforcements are coming out of this direction. The Zerg Hive is over here as well. He's obviously only got a single one of those. The way that SKillous is maneuvering his army here is forcing Zerg to split. But since this Protoss, yeah, this Protoss ground army is much faster than the Zerg Air Force, it is working out in SKillous' favor. He's just constantly showing units at one side of the map and then he's moving to the other side. Mass Recall, once again, is going to bring those units back home. But I think that force has already finished the job of, well, creating a distraction for the Zerg army. As now the Zerg Natural as well as the Zerg main are gone. At the same time, though, okay. Ooh, very significant neural parasites over here. Yep. That is going to temporarily make those Archons change sight. And apparently it's now allowing the Ultralisk here to, well, clean everything up. But I think they already were responsible for killing one of those carriers as well. Maybe a second one, too. Alright. Aw. An Ultralisk love triangle. Oh, that's not triangle anymore. This is beautiful. Cuddling Ultralisks. I've truly seen it all now. Anyways, very good movement here, though, by SKillous. SKillous right now out-expending his opponent. Serral here awkwardly forced into the bottom right-hand corner. He's gonna run out of money, but... I mean, his army is still huge. This is a very scary Zerg force. But again, since it's Brute Lord-based... he can't really move across the map very easily. I think the furthest that those brutes have gone is over here. And then they pretty much all died, so... Serral forced to play the long game. That's why those Zergling and Baneling run-bys are so important. And I think Ultras will probably be joining those run-by groups as well. A couple Infestors here in the mix too. Prism. Okay. Hanging in the back of the main. Zerg apparently decided to go for a new hive. I guess that this is the most, well, safe location he can aim for right now, but there's a hive coming up. There is a spire coming up. That's why Serral didn't actually remax super quickly here. He actually has to wait until some of that tech is once more available. Things like spawning pools take a surprisingly long time. Anyways, here we go. Additional armor upgrades are coming up for SKillous, who's trying to take this base over here. He's only got 58 probes, but it should be enough to mine out the few bases that he hasn't actually acquired yet. I really love the way that SKillous is playing this game so far. This is a really cool army composition. Constantly splitting up the units, not just focusing on like a mass carrier army. Instead, he's actually, yeah, playing a 6 strategy game. Well, it's the problem though, right? Those Infestors and those Ultras are actually working out really well. Archon's changing sides once again. They're actually providing so much value at the same time. Okay, we do have a bit of a force over here. The Zealots in the meantime are also trying to deal some damage over at the Zerg's third base. Despite the fact, though, that those Infestors, well, did force a couple of those units to change side. They're still winning the battle. The problem is that the battle was lost on the right side of the map, and SKillous definitely ended up losing some expensive units right over there. These Infestors have actually been super valuable. Like, when you see someone like Serral playing this style, it's like, yeah, of course you go for Infestors, of course you go for Vipers, of course you go for all of it. But when you give that a try in your own game, you realize, wait a second, I'm a human. At best, I have 2 hands. How do I control all of this? That's once again where that APM comes into the mix. Oh my god. Alright. It looks, well, I don't even think it looks easy, but it looks about 20 times easier than it actually is. To, like, maneuver those units correctly, it's super easy to accidentally fail and accidentally lose the game. Speaking of which, though, I do think Vipers, yeah, more Vipers, so we have 3 right now in the mix, are an amazing addition here to this army. Actually, I think 3 is fine. I didn't realize that you already have 3 here. I think that's pretty good. Alright, as far as the Protoss goes right now, despite the fact that I really like what he's doing here, he's going up against the Zerg Death Ball, and his approach against the Death Ball is to try and basically spread the Zerg player very thin, and then hopefully win like half the fights here and there, right? So, the idea being that you, yeah, eventually win the long game by like forcing the Zerg to sit on a relatively small amount of bases. Gonna need some fungals. Nice fungal. So this is actually, like, the way I'm describing it right now, historically it's been the Zerg player who's in that position. The Zerg player is trying to prevent the Death Ball, but that's exactly what SKillous is doing in this game as well. He's like playing the Zerg. Bit of a reversal right here of the roles that we normally see in this matchup, but Serral has an insane Death Ball here, beautiful fungal growth, great parasitic bomb, and he's just picking off a unit at a time. SKillous is running out of juice. He really doesn't have a lot of money. Another Zergling block over there that's going to force the Observer to go on over in that direction. It's annoying, it's going to force more actions, and it's going to slow things down. Serral hasn't actually attempted to take another base. I really would have expected him to, yeah, try and take this one by now, but apparently he's happy with the amount of income that he's getting. Couple of Zerglings trying to be annoying on the other side of the map, but I do feel that Protoss should have an easier time continuously expanding at this point, whereas normally, that's exactly the other way around. So Serral actually has very little income. Yeah, if you look right now at the income graph, income advantage slowly moving in favor right here of SKillous, who's gonna need it too, because, well, yeah, at this point his traits are not nearly as good anymore. He's actually lost 5,000 gas more than his opponent. I think that's probably those Archons that we've seen fungled like 4 times in a row. Those Archons, yeah, they're expensive. They're very strong, but very expensive to accidentally lose like that. It's starting to really hurt the Protoss player here. Okay, once again, Banelings. We do have a response, but yeah, Serral's still going to settle for at least a couple kills here and there. Zealot run by on the right side of the map. Trading out for some spine crawlers, not bad. Serral does have a bunch of money in the bank, though. Even the spine crawlers get uprooted and brought back to safety. Nicely done. I wonder if it's time for SKillous to start working on his own Death Ball. Because I don't think he's going to be able to win this game if he just focuses on the army that he's got right now. Yeah, so with the developments in the meta over the last few months in ZVP, it's mostly been the Protoss players that play that Zergy style, right? And meaning that like they try to overwhelm their opponents with a lot of stuff. And I think that it's an amazing style. It's really good, especially in the mid game. But I don't think it's really a late game army approach. I don't think it's what you want to be playing in the late game here. And Serral now, he's made his ultimate Zerg force. So this is, yeah, look at this. This is what I'm trying to explain here. The army values at this point in the game, look at this. This is Serral's army just being so much more, what's the word, sophisticated? I guess that's one way to describe it. Now that is a beautiful choke to be storming through as well. But sadly here for Protoss, already a lot of damage was done right there by the fungal. Oh my god. Yeah, Serral's not slowing down here either, huh? That was actually an insane engagement right there for Zerg. At the same time though, Zealots trying to be a nuisance. Protoss here also with some Stalkers up north. The Broodlords are nearby, and fungal growth once again wreaks havoc in the plan right here of SKillous. Yeah, the army value here for Serral is ridiculous. I think Serral is a little bit concerned, though, that there is like a very large Protoss fleet. Yeah, so this is the first time we really see him moving out once again, going after the most exposed base that these brutes can actually reach. He's probably a little bit concerned that suddenly there's going to be like 6 carriers flying across the screen. That's one of the reasons why you do also want to attack, by the way. In a way, that's like an offensive scout, right? Anyways, Stalkers. Looking for a potential engagement over here. They can blink underneath if they want to. Okay. Nope. Fungal growth once again whiffed, but it is going to force those Stalkers back for the time being. Yeah, so SKillous definitely here is not going to go for a late game army transition. He's planning on sticking around on Stalkers and Zealots. Honestly, if that's the case, what I would love to see here from Zerg is Lurkers. I know we've got every single late game unit in the book already, but since SKillous is running dry on resources here, you can defend it with Ultras, you can defend it with fungal growth and, you know, Broodlords and all that, but I feel like Lurkers would probably be the easiest way of doing it. Okay. Ultralisks then is coming up, so maybe he is going to be making that transition. That's what we've been seeing over the last few weeks in this matchup, where Protoss has tried to just heavily out-expend and heavily overwhelm the Zergs. It seems that Lurkers, a unit that historically has been very unpopular in the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, it seems that Lurkers have now taken, yeah, a very important role in, like, the transition from, like, the mid-game to the late game for Zerg. Or especially when it comes to, like, dealing with those Stalker Zealot-based army, it seems that the Lurkers are really good. Those ground armies just don't trade particularly efficiently, and the Lurkers definitely are more mobile than those Broodlords are. Anyhow, there it is. Oh my god. Me and Serral are on one line, dude. That means I'm basically as good as Serral, right? I just have 2 hands, though. That's the main problem. But if I also had 4 hands like Serral does, I think he does anyways, maybe I could also play similarly. I'm slowly turning into the ultimate backseat gamer. The ultimate Twitch chat grandmaster. Where I know the game, and I know really well how to play the game, but the execution. Alright, here we go. This is apparently the moment where SKillous decided to go for an aggressive move forward. I love the feedbacks right there as well on those High Templar. The High Templar just trying to slow down his army, and SKillous is trying to look for opportunities, right? Like, he's looking for potential engagements that he can win. So, in my mind, right, how exactly is Serral gonna lose this? I feel like if he's not paying attention, he loses a couple of those Infestors, he loses a few of the Broodlords because the Stalkers blink underneath. That is a way in which Serral can lose this game. SKillous at this point is not facing off against Lurkers yet, but I've got a feeling that his heart will sink as soon as he realizes that that is the next step in the plan of Serral. Because Stalkers and Zealots just don't trade well at all against Lurkers. So there's 4 of them coming up right now. If there's like 20 Lurkers out in this game, I don't see what SKillous is going to do without making that transition towards a late game army once again. Now, he is taking one of the bases that is, well, normally in like a conventional game, it would be considered one of the Zergs. So either this base is one of the Zergs or this base up here. Problem is, though, that this is a very exposed expansion too, right? Broodlords can easily make their way on over there. Anyhow, yeah, SKillous is actually gonna take another base. This is actually pretty sick. Like, historically... Okay, if you've been watching any Zerg tutorial, right, over, like, the last 12 years, it seems that the conventional wisdom for Zerg is to basically take, like, X plus 1 amount of bases. X being the amount of bases that the opponent has. So say your Protoss opponent has got 5, you want to have at least 6. Say your Terran opponent has at least 3, you want to have at least 4, right? And that dynamic has shifted over the last couple of months. So right now, SKillous is taking an entire extra base. Yeah, Serral's gonna find out about this base right now too, though. He wanted to make an expansion over here, but... Well, that's not gonna happen. Alright. Now you've angered the beast. Immediately, part of the Zerg army is heading on over in this direction. With all of those run-bys, though... Yeah, now the Lurkers are here, man. Those Lurkers are really a big problem. Anyways, okay, this is the first time he's gonna see them. Yep. This is where we hope we have player cameras, right? We wish we had player cams. Got a feeling that SKillous, you know... not being too happy with that situation. You can try and engage this if you want to. Yeah, sure, you can try. There's a lot of Ultras on the back of that too, though. Those Lurkers are already softening up those Zealots in the front, and I think these Ultras are going to be able to clean up that job easy peasy. At the same time, Brute Lords are once again pushing back the Stalkers. I love these types of games. These are so sick. Like, this is very different. Like, not every long game of StarCraft 2 is good, right? I think that's like a bit of a misconception. Not every long game of StarCraft 2 is good. Like, there's a lot of games where players are just simply sitting there and they're banking up to like 20,000 resources. Those games are not nearly as exciting as this one to me because neither of these players, I don't think, has ever had a bank over like, I don't know, maybe 10,000? I don't know exactly. I've not really been paying very close attention to the resources, but every time I check it downstairs right here at the bottom of the screen, it seems that both of these guys are poor. Seems that they're both broke. Alright. While the Brute Lords are working on that newly acquired Nexus, though, yeah, the Zerg army is forced to split once again against the Stalker Bull. Stalkers are picking off the Lurkers one at a time. Little bit of miscontrol right there, though, from SKillous. And he ends up losing quite a few of his units once more. It seems to me that Serral is just slightly crisper in his late-game execution here, which is what he does. But this is very good effort right here from our Protoss. Alright. Now Serral is starting to move out. Oh my god. No, not again! That's the second time we see 4 High Templar going down. Okay, Motherships coming up again. Good. Problem is, though, that this is not an army that can just, like... It doesn't get better. It doesn't skill particularly well, right? Whereas the Zerg army, those Infestors, those Vipers, they constantly gain energy. This Protoss force doesn't have that luxury. So SKillous needs to have money to constantly replenish the units that he's losing. And now with that base gone, the one in the bottom right-hand corner gone as well, on top of that 22 probes, this is really the last mining that we see right now for our Protoss. Yeah, there's no more resources available really in any of those bases. All of those mineral fields have run very dry, meaning that SKillous is on his last legs. Serral doesn't have much mining either, by the way. Yeah. Got like no mining. Serral has not been mining though for the better part of 10 minutes. He's got this base right over here. A couple of drones apparently following around a few other drones. He's not really been mining much for quite a while, but his army is definitely a lot beefier. Ultras, Lurkers, Vipers, Infestors, Brute Lords, Corruptors, Queens, Zerglings. Maybe a few Banelings still. Like, this is one hell of a Zerg army. Yeah, look at that. Just, like, the what do you call this? Like, the width, or, like, the length of the unit staff kind of indicates the situation that Protoss is currently in. No, he still has a good force, though. If he can somehow some way force an engagement with half of the Zerg army, he may actually be able to win that fight, and from there, the game would definitely change. There's another abduction, though. Not that many Corruptors available, but the Mothership does once again get picked off, or it does once again, yeah, gets destroyed right over there. Not ideal. Zealots, okay. Somehow, some way have made a way over here. Skill is also wondering where the mining is actually happening right here for the Finnish player. Turns out Serral right here is just mining here with a couple of units up north, and the Zealots are definitely not going to be able to make their way over there. One of the last mining bases of the Protoss players under attack right now as well. 8 additional probes end up going down. And I think the Brutes, yep, will once again just back off. Alright, no production anymore. Other than 4 Lurkers, apparently. But that is Serral essentially smashing his piggy bank. Playing a very safe game. We've got a feeling at this point, though, that those, like, soon-to-be, like, 10 Lurkers are gonna be enough to basically deal with the entire Protoss Grand Army. Maybe not quite, but if they're all in the same spot and they were to engage head-on, I feel like the Lurkers alone are gonna be quite scary. Serral apparently noticed the little shimmer right there. Because of course he does. Alright. SKillous has apparently decided to now start long-distance mining the base right here in the bottom right-hand corner. Stalkers still moving around. But yeah, you can just like a couple Lurkers burrowed over here are gonna deflect a lot of these fights. Okay, this is where Serral apparently decides to go for a move out. Now keep in mind, this army is split up, but those Lurkers can reposition themselves relatively well. Once again, moves back. Serral wants to force a battle right now between the armies. And maybe he's going to be getting his wish right over here. Beautiful fungal growths once again, slowing down an army. Great storm as well, though, here for SKillous. But there it is. GG, well played is called. And Serral wins a 40-minute game in what I consider to be an epic match of Zerg versus Protoss.